Amy Thompson had always been different from other 16-year-olds. While her peers spent Friday nights at football games or local diners, she could be found in her father's private observatory, fine-tuning the massive radio telescope that had been her playground since childhood. The Montana night sky stretched endlessly above her, a canvas of possibilities that most people never truly appreciated. Tonight was different, though. The regular background static of the universe had changed. "Dad," she called out, her voice echoing through the dome. "Dad, you need to see this." Her fingers flew across the console, making minor adjustments to filter out the usual cosmic noise. The pattern remained, persistent and deliberately structured. Dr. Robert Thompson hurried up the stairs, coffee cup in hand. "What is it, kiddo?" he asked, but the smile faded from his face as he saw the readings. 20 years of research had taught him to recognize the impossible when he saw it. "It's not random," Amy said, her voice barely a whisper. "Look at the pattern. It's repeating every 12.3 seconds, but each repetition has subtle variations. This isn't a pulsar or any natural phenomenon." Before Dr. Thompson could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID read, "Restricted." With trembling hands, he answered, listening intently for several minutes before speaking. "Yes, we've detected it too. How many others?" His face paled. "I see. We'll expect them within the hour." 40 minutes later, 3 black SUVs pulled up to the observatory. Men and women in dark suits emerged, led by a distinguished-looking man who introduced himself as Dr. Jack Harrison from the National Science Foundation. But Amy knew better. She'd seen his face in scientific journals, usually accompanied by headlines about controversial theories on deep Earth geology. "Miss Thompson," Harrison said, looking at her with unexpected respect, "would you mind walking us through exactly what you found?" For the next 20 minutes, Amy explained her discovery, her voice growing more confident, as she saw the senior scientists nodding along. She'd expected them to dismiss her, but instead they asked questions that made her realize they were taking her seriously. "The signal," Harrison finally said, "is being broadcast on a frequency that shouldn't be possible according to our current understanding of physics. But more importantly, we've managed to begin decoding it." He paused, looking around the room. "It's a distress call." The translation team worked through the night. Amy, despite initial protests from the government officials, was allowed to stay. Her pattern recognition skills proved invaluable as they pieced together the alien language. By dawn, they had their answer. The Mirakai, an advanced aquatic species, were facing extinction. Their ocean planet's core was becoming unstable, threatening to tear their world apart. Despite their technological prowess, they lacked the specific knowledge needed to prevent the collapse. "They've asked 3 other civilizations for help," Harrison explained during an emergency UN video conference. All 3 refused, claiming the problem was unsolvable. He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "But they don't know humans. We've spent our entire history solving the impossible." Amy watched from the back of the room as the world's leaders debated. The Mirakai had advanced technology that could revolutionize human society, but the mission would be incredibly dangerous. Success wasn't just unlikely. It was deemed impossible by species far more advanced than humanity. Finally, the UN Secretary-General asked the question that would change human history forever. "How long do they have?" Harrison's response was immediate. 6 months, maybe less. The Secretary-General nodded gravely. "Then we have no choice. Humanity didn't come this far by backing down from a challenge. Notify the Mirakai. Tell them help is coming." As the sun rose over the Montana mountains, Amy looked at the stars one last time before they faded from view. Somewhere out there, an alien civilization was about to learn what humans were capable of when the odds were stacked against them. Lieutenant Michael Cooper stood in the briefing room of the Naval Research Facility in San Diego, staring at the holographic display of the Mirakai planet. 20 years of deep-sea experience had taught him to trust his gut, and something about the alien data wasn't adding up. "Play it again," he asked the tech officer. The simulation of the planet's core destabilization flickered to life, showing patterns of energy distribution that seemed hauntingly familiar. Dr. Jack Harrison walked in, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Found something, Cooper?" "Maybe," Cooper replied, his eyes never leaving the display. "These energy signatures, they're almost identical to what we saw during the Pacific Plate Crisis of 2023. He pointed to a particular pattern. "See how the energy disperses in a spiral pattern. We've seen this before, just on a smaller scale." Harrison's eyes widened. The other alien species missed this because they've never dealt with tectonic activity. Their planets are stable. "Exactly," Cooper said, a hint of excitement in his voice. "They called it impossible because they've never had to solve this kind of problem. But Earth, our entire planet, is a testament to geological engineering." The door burst open as Amy Thompson rushed in, still wearing her NASA visitor badge. "Dr. Harrison, the new translations just came through." She handed over a tablet, her hands shaking. "The 3 species who refuse to help. They're hiding something." Harrison scrolled through the data, his expression growing darker. "The Zentari, the most advanced of the 3, they actually attempted a rescue operation." He looked up. "They lost an entire fleet. Whatever's happening on that planet, it's more than just geological instability." Cooper pulled up his own research files. "During the Pacific Plate Crisis, we discovered that certain geological patterns were actually caused by ancient technology. What if?" He paused, almost afraid to voice his theory. "What if the Mirkay's ancestors built something down there? Something the other species don't want us to find?" The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just being asked to save a planet. They were walking into a cosmic mystery that had already claimed advanced alien lives. Dr. Emily Brooks, the team's quantum physicist, joined them, carrying fresh coffee for everyone. "The preparation teams are almost ready, but there's another problem." She pulled up a new display. "The Mirkay's surface readings don't match their deep ocean data. It's like 2 different planets. Or 2 different time periods." Amy interjected, drawing surprised looks. "Sorry, but look, if you overlay the data sets and account for temporal displacement." Her fingers flew across the console, and the patterns suddenly aligned perfectly. Harrison let out a low whistle. The planet's core isn't just unstable. It's experiencing time dilation. No wonder the other species backed out. They're not equipped to handle space-time anomalies of this scale. "But we are," Cooper said firmly. "Every deep-sea mission I've led has encountered time discrepancies at extreme depths. We've developed protocols for this." The intercom crackled to life with an urgent message. The U.S. Horizon was ready for final equipment loading. The mission would launch in 12 hours. As the team dispersed to make final preparations, Harrison held Amy back. "The Mirkay requested you specifically join the mission." He smiled at her shocked expression. "They say anyone who could detect their signal through quantum interference has in mind they need." "But I'm just a kid," Amy protested weakly. "You're a human," Harrison corrected. "And right now, that's exactly what the universe needs. Someone who can see patterns where others see chaos, who can find hope where others see impossibility." Outside, the sun was setting over the Pacific, its light catching the massive form of the U.S. horizon in the distance. Tomorrow, humanity would take its first real step into the galactic community. Not as supplicants or students, but as problem solvers. The species that looked at the impossible and saw opportunity. The U.S. horizon emerged from its final jump at the edge of the Mirkay system. the massive ship's quantum drives cooling in the void of space. Dr. Emily Brooks stood at the observation deck, her heart racing as the alien world came into view. A sphere of deepest blue, wrapped in swirling storms that made Earth's hurricanes look like gentle breezes. "It's beautiful," Amy whispered beside her, the teenager's eyes wide with wonder. "And terrifying." Lieutenant Cooper joined them, his expression grim. "Surface readings are even more extreme than we expected. Those storms are picking up speed. The core instability is affecting the atmosphere." The ship's intercom crackled. All senior staff to the bridge. Mir Kai delegation approaching. They watched as a sleek vessel rose from the planet's surface, its design unlike anything human engineers had ever conceived. The ship seemed to flow like liquid metal, adapting its shape to the atmospheric conditions it encountered. On the bridge, Dr. Harrison straightened his uniform as the first image of the Mirakai appeared on the main screen. The alien being had an almost cetacean appearance, but with multiple sets of manipulator tentacles and eyes that seemed to shift color with their emotions. "I am Elder Zaradith." The translator rendered the musical tones into English. "We did not expect such a swift response from your kind." Harrison stepped forward. "We don't believe in wasting time when lives are at stake, Elder. I'm Dr. Jack Harrison, and this is our team." The Elder's eyes shifted to a deep purple, a sign of skepticism, according to their briefings. "The Zentari spent 3 solar cycles analyzing our problem before even attempting a solution. Yet you arrive, having barely studied our data." "Because we've lived it," Cooper interrupted, drawing startled looks from both species. He quickly pulled up the Pacific Plate crisis data. "Your planet's core is experiencing something similar to what we faced on Earth, just on a larger scale. We don't need 3 solar cycles to understand something we've already solved." The Elder's color shifted again, this time to a shade they hadn't seen in their briefings. Your species has survived such a crisis." "We've done more than survive," Dr. Brooks added, stepping forward. "We've learned to predict, prevent, and control tectonic events that once would have devastated our civilization. But more importantly," she gestured to their equipment, "we've learned to do it by going into the heart of the problem ourselves." The Mirakai delegation conferred among themselves in rapid, musical tones that the translators couldn't keep up with. Finally, Elder Zaradith spoke again. "There is something you should see, something we have not shared with the other species." The humans were led to a vast underwater chamber in the Mirkai's primary city. There, carved into ancient stone, was a prophecy that made Amy gasp in recognition. "The surface dwellers will come," she read from the translated text. "Born of a world of fire and stone, they will either be our salvation or our final doom." These words were written by the Shapers, Elder Zaradith explained. "Those who built the great machines deep within our world before the Great Sleep took them." Harrison and Cooper exchanged knowing looks. The ancient technology theory was correct. "We have a saying on Earth," Amy said, surprising everyone by speaking up. "The only way out is through. Whatever's down there, whatever's causing this, we need to face it head on." The Elder's color shifted to a brilliant gold. "You are young, even by your species standards. Yet you speak with the wisdom of the Shapers. That's humanity for you," Harrison said with pride. "We learn fast, adapt faster, and never back down from a challenge, no matter how impossible it seems." As if in response to his words, a deep tremor shook the city. The planet's core was deteriorating faster than expected. "How soon can your team begin?" the Elder asked, all skepticism gone from their voice. Harrison looked at his team. The seasoned deep-sea veteran, the brilliant physicist, and the young prodigy who had started it all. "We already have hull integrity at 92% and holding." Chief Engineer Ryan Martins, announced from the control room of the deep-sea vessel Nautilus. The experimental craft, designed to withstand the crushing pressures of Earth's deepest trenches, was about to be tested far beyond its original specifications. Lieutenant Cooper checked his team's equipment one final time. "Remember, folks, we're making history here. First humans to dive an alien ocean." He paused, looking at each member of his four-person dive team. "And probably the first species crazy enough to do it without full automation." The Mirakai observers watched in what could only be described as horror as the humans prepared for manual diving operations. Their own exploratory vessels were fully automated, the idea of physical presence at such depths considered suicide. "Beginning descent," Martins called out. "Passing 3,000 meters." Dr. Brooks monitored the quantum fluctuations from her station. "Time dilation effects are starting to show up. We're experiencing a 0.002-second lag compared to surface time." The vessel's lights illuminated the alien waters, revealing structures that defied description. Massive crystalline formations pulsed with internal light, while creatures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously darted through the beams. 7,000 meters, Martins updated. "Wait, I'm picking up something on the scanner. Port side, about 200 meters." Cooper adjusted the external cameras, and everyone gasped. Rising before them was an ancient Mirakai city, its architecture more reminiscent of Earth's deep-sea volcanic vents than the flowing lines of modern Mirakai construction. "This shouldn't be here," one of the Mirakai observers said, their skin pulsing with patterns of confusion. "Our records show nothing at this depth." "The time dilation," Amy suggested from her position at the analysis station. "Could these ruins be experiencing time differently? Maybe they're not just spatially deep, but temporally deep too." Before anyone could respond, the vessel shuddered violently. Warning lights flashed across every console. "Primary power core is failing," Martins shouted. "The time dilation is affecting the antimatter containment field." Cooper made a split-second decision. "Suit up," he ordered his dive team. "We're going out there." "That's impossible," the Mirakai observer protested. "Even our most advanced diving suits can't handle these conditions." "Good thing we're not using yours then," Cooper said, already sealing his helmet. The human diving suits were a hybrid of traditional deep-sea equipment and experimental quantum shielding, designed specifically for this mission. As the team prepared to exit the vehicle, Amy made a startling discovery. "These ruins, they're not just a city. Look at the energy patterns. The entire structure is some kind of machine." "A machine that's still running," Brooks added, her voice tense. "And I think it's what's causing the core instability." The dive team emerged into the alien waters, their suits' external lights illuminating the ancient structures. Cooper led them toward a central building that pulsed with the same energy signature as the planet's core. "Found the access point," team engineer Sarah Rodriguez called out. "But the power systems are unlike anything we've seen. We need to improvise." Cooper smiled inside his helmet. Improvising is what humans do best. Using a combination of Earth deep-sea mining tools and adapted Mirakai technology, the team managed to bypass the ancient security systems. Inside, they found a control center that seemed to bend reality itself. "It's a temporal anchor," Brooks realized, studying the readings. The Shapers built it to stabilize time itself in their ocean world. But after millennia of operation, it's breaking down, Cooper finished, and taking the planet's core with it. The team had found their answer, but now faced an even bigger challenge: how to repair a machine that manipulated the very fabric of space-time, built by an ancient civilization, all while operating in the crushing depths of an alien ocean. "Well," Cooper said, his voice steady despite everything, "at least now we know why the other species called it impossible." Security officer Lisa Anderson had seen her share of suspicious behavior during her years with naval intelligence, but something about the latest deep-sea readings made her instincts scream. She studied the data patterns from the last 3 dives, noting how the equipment failures always seemed to occur at predictable intervals. "These aren't random malfunctions," she muttered, marking another pattern on her holographic display. "They're too perfect." A soft chime announced Amy's arrival in the security office. The teenager had proven herself invaluable, not just for her scientific insights, but for her uncanny ability to see connections others missed. "You found something?" Amy asked, setting down 2 cups of coffee, a gesture she'd learned from Dr. Harrison. "Look at these equipment failure reports," Lisa pointed to the display. "Every malfunction happens exactly 12 minutes after the dive team reaches a certain depth. It's like someone's watching and waiting." Amy finished, her eyes widening. "But who would want to sabotage the mission?" "The Mirakai asked for our help." Before Lisa could respond, the ship's alert system blared to life. Another tremor had hit the Mirakai city, this one stronger than any before. In the emergency meeting that followed, Elder Zareth's colors shifted between deep reds and blacks, signs of extreme distress. "The core degradation has accelerated. We have weeks, not months." "Because someone wants us to fail," Lisa announced, stepping forward with her evidence. The room fell silent as she displayed the pattern of sabotage. Dr. Harrison studied the data, his expression grim. "But why? Who benefits from the destruction of an entire world?" A young Mirakai scientist named Kaylin, who had been working closely with the human team, suddenly spoke up. "The Covenant of the Deep." All the Mirakai present changed to a pale, alarmed blue. "The what now?" Cooper asked, looking between the aliens. "A faction that believes our species is cursed," Kaylin explained. "They think the Shapers left us because we were unworthy, and that our planet's death is divine punishment." Dr. Brooks slammed her hand on the table. "Divine punishment. We found evidence that this is a mechanical problem. The temporal anchor is failing because it's ancient technology, not because of some cosmic judgment." "Fanatics don't care about evidence," Lisa said quietly. "They care about their beliefs." Another tremor shook the station, stronger than the last. Warning systems blared as reports came in of structural damage to the lower levels. "We don't have time for this," Cooper declared. "We need to get back down there, saboteurs or not." "Wait," Amy said, her voice cutting through the chaos. She'd been quiet, studying the holographic display of the ancient city. "The sabotage patterns, they're not just about stopping us. They're trying to keep us away from something specific." She manipulated the display, highlighting a section of the ruins they hadn't yet explored. "Every accident happens when we get too close to this area. What if the Covenant isn't trying to stop us from saving the planet? What if they're trying to hide something the Shapers left behind?" The room erupted in discussion, but Lisa noticed something else. One of the Mirakai advisors had quietly slipped away during Amy's revelation. "Dr. Harrison," she said under her breath, "we need to move now. Our saboteur just showed their hand." Harrison nodded almost imperceptibly. "Cooper, get your team ready for an emergency dive. Dr. Brooks, we'll need those new shielding modifications immediately." He turned to Elder Zareth. "And we're going to need the truth about what's really down there in those ruins." The Elder's colors shifted to a deep, resolute purple. "The truth. The truth is that the Shapers did not abandon us. They are still here, sleeping in the deep, and the Covenant will do anything to keep them that way." Commander James Wheeler had seen his share of impossible situations during his naval career, but nothing quite like this. He stood in the control room of the U.S. Horizon, watching as Lieutenant Cooper's team prepared for what could be their final dive. "The temporal distortions are getting worse," Dr. Brooks reported, her eyes fixed on the quantum readings. "We're seeing time differences of up to 30 seconds between the surface and the deep now." "What about the saboteur?" Wheeler asked, turning to Lisa Anderson. Contained, she replied grimly. But the damage was already done. They managed to send a signal to their allies in the deep. Amy burst into the room, clutching a tablet. I finished translating more of the Shaper text from the ruins. She paused, catching her breath. They weren't just advanced engineers. They were time architects. They built the temporal anchor because they saw something coming, something they needed to hide from. Hide from what? Cooper asked, already suited up for the dive. Before Amy could answer, a massive tremor rocked the ship. Alarms blared as reports flooded in from the Mirakai city below. Massive structural failures were cascading through the lower levels. "We're out of time," Wheeler declared. He turned to Elder Zareth, who had been unusually quiet. "Those sleeping Shapers of yours, are they really worth protecting after all this time?" The Elder's colors shifted through a complex pattern none of the humans had seen before. "The Covenant believes the Shapers sleep because we failed them. The truth is, they sleep because they failed the universe." Dr. Harrison's eyes widened as the pieces clicked into place. The temporal anchor, it's not just stabilizing your planet. It's a prison, isn't it? "The greatest prison ever built," the Elder confirmed. The Shapers saw a darkness coming, an entity that devoured time itself. They couldn't defeat it, so they trapped it, and themselves, in a temporal loop, forever frozen between moments. "But the system's breaking down," Cooper added, "and when it does, everything within 1,000 light-years will be consumed," the Elder finished. Wheeler looked at his team, the brave divers, the brilliant scientists, and the young prodigy who had started it all. Then he made the kind of decision that defined human leadership. "New plan," he announced. "We're not just going to fix the anchor. We're going to free the Shapers." "That's suicide," one of the Mirakai advisors protested. "The temporal energies would tear any rescue team apart." "Not if we use the time dilation to our advantage," Amy interjected. She rushed to the holographic display, fingers flying over the controls. "Look, the distortions follow a pattern. If we time it right, we can create a temporal corridor." Dr. Brooks nodded slowly, understanding dawning on her face. A tunnel through time itself. "But we'd need something to shield the team from the temporal winds." "Something like this?" Cooper asked, pressing a button on his dive suit. The experimental quantum shielding hummed to life, creating a bubble of stable space-time around him. "You modified the suits?" Harrison asked, impressed. "Rule 1 of deep-sea diving," Cooper grinned. "Always have a backup plan for your backup plan." Wheeler made his decision. "Cooper, take your team down. Dr. Brooks, monitor the temporal corridor from here. Anderson, keep the Covenant off their backs. And Amy," he turned to the teenager, "keep translating those texts. If we're going to wake up some ancient aliens, we should probably know what to say to them." As the team made their final preparations, Elder Zareth approached Wheeler. "You know that even if you succeed, there's no guarantee we can stop what the Shapers imprisoned." Wheeler's response was pure human determination. "Maybe not. But I'll tell you what we can guarantee. We're not going to hide from it. Whatever's out there, whatever they were afraid of, it's about to learn what happens when it messes with two species who've got nothing left to lose and everything to fight for." The deep-sea vessel Nautilus cut through the dark waters like a ghost, its modified quantum shields casting a bubble of stable time around it. Inside, Lieutenant Cooper checked his team's equipment one final time as they approached the ancient city. "Time differential is at 45 seconds now," Rodriguez reported from her station. "We're experiencing time almost twice as fast as the surface." Dr. Harrison's voice crackled over the comm, distorted by the temporal distortions. "Remember, you'll only have one shot at this. The corridor Amy calculated will stay open for 3-minute ship time, which could be anything from 6 minutes to 6 seconds where you are. Cooper acknowledged the warning as the ruins came into view. The ancient buildings now pulsed with an intense energy that seemed to bend light itself around them. The team could see waves of temporal energy rippling through the water like heat mirages in a desert. Multiple contacts. Lisa Anderson's voice cut through the static. Covenant vessels approaching from below. They must have had a hidden base down here. Let them come, Cooper replied, his voice steel. We didn't come this far to back down now. The Nautilus docked at the central structure, now identified as the main chamber of the temporal prison. As the team prepared to disembark, Amy's voice came through, clear despite the interference. I've decoded more of the text, she said urgently. The Shapers, they're not just sleeping. They're in a state of quantum superposition, existing in multiple time streams at once. That's how they're containing the entity. And if we wake them? Cooper asked, already knowing he wouldn't like the answer. Either we all survive, or reality itself unravels, Amy replied. But here's the thing, the mathematics they used. It's almost identical to modern quantum computing. They were thinking like we think, just on a cosmic scale. The team moved through the ancient halls, their suits quantum shields fighting against the increasing temporal pressure. Around them, they could see moments of the past and future bleeding through. Glimpses of the city when it was new, when it was yet to be built, when it would crumble. Contact. Rodriguez shouted as energy beams from Covenant weapons sliced through the water around them. They're trying to collapse the temporal corridor. Cooper made a split-second decision. Brooks, Harrison. How strong are the suit's shields? Strong enough for what you're thinking. Probably not, Brooks replied. But since when has that stopped us? With a grim smile, Cooper led his team straight through the firefight, their shields absorbing hits that should have vaporized them. They reached the central chamber just as the temporal distortions reached critical levels. Inside, they found what looked like a massive crystalline structure, within which shadowy figures could be seen. The Shapers, frozen between moments of time. And beyond them, something that hurt the eyes to look at, a darkness that seemed to devour light itself. Quantum lock is failing, Rodriguez called out. The entity is breaking free. Amy's voice cut through the chaos. The equations, they're not just a prison formula. They're a weapon design. The Shapers weren't just containing it, they were looking for a way to destroy it. But they never had the processing power to run the calculations, Harrison added, understanding dawning in his voice. Not even their advanced computers could handle it. Good thing we brought something better than a computer, Cooper said, looking at the neural link interface they'd installed in their suits. We brought human intuition. What followed was unlike anything in human or Mirkai history. As the Covenant forces breached the chamber, as the entity began to break free, as reality itself started to tear apart, the human team linked their suits' systems together. They became a living quantum computer, their minds working in perfect sync with the ancient Shaper technology. They didn't just think through the problem. They felt it, lived it, became one with the mathematical dance of creation itself. And in that moment, humanity proved why they were different from every other species that had failed here. Because when the universe needed someone to look into the darkness between moments of time, someone to face the impossible and not blink, it didn't need advanced technology. It needed the species that had learned to turn their greatest weaknesses into their greatest strengths. It needed humans. 3 months after the events in the deep, Amy Thompson stood before the Galactic Council, her NASA uniform pressed and perfect. The chamber was filled with representatives from 100 species, all gathered to hear the official account of what the humans had done. The entity is gone, she began, her voice strong and clear. Not just contained, but transformed. When our team linked their minds with the Shaper technology, they didn't just solve the equation. They understood it, and in understanding, they found something the Shapers never could. The holographic display behind her showed the moment of transformation. The darkness that had threatened to devour time itself had been converted into pure energy, now safely powering the Mirakai world's core. For the next million years, Dr. Harrison stepped forward, taking his place beside Amy. The Shapers are awake, and they've confirmed what we suspected. They had the technology, but they were missing something essential: the human ability to make intuitive leaps, to feel the mathematics as much as think it. Elder Zarith, now sporting the brilliant gold colors of joy, added their own testament. We asked the galaxy for help, and most called it impossible. The humans called it Tuesday. A ripple of surprised laughter swept through the chamber at the Elder's use of human humor. Lieutenant Cooper, still walking with a slight limp from the neural feedback, took the floor. The Covenant members have been brought to justice, but more importantly, they've been shown the truth. The Shapers didn't abandon the Mirakai. They protected them, just as they protected all of us, until someone could arrive who could finally end the threat. But the most remarkable discovery, Dr. Brooks added, was what happened when the entity was transformed. The release of temporal energy created a permanent link between Earth's and the Mirakai's magnetic fields. We're still studying the implications, but early tests suggest it's a bridge. Amy cut in, unable to contain her excitement. A natural wormhole between our worlds, stable and self-sustaining. The first of its kind ever discovered. The council chamber erupted in excited discussion. The implications were staggering. A new form of faster-than-light travel, one that didn't require massive energy expenditure or complex technology. Commander Wheeler stood to deliver the final part of the report. The human Mirakai science team, working together with the awakened Shapers, has already identified similar potential connection points throughout the galaxy. With the right approach, we could create a network of these bridges, linking worlds in ways we never thought possible. And that, Harrison concluded, is why we're here today. Not just to report on a crisis averted, but to propose a new future. The Shapers have agreed to share their knowledge, the Mirakai their resources, and Earth its innovation. Together, we can build something greater than any one species could achieve alone. As the council delegates filed out hours later, Amy found herself standing with Elder Zarith in the observation dome, looking out at the stars. "You know," she said thoughtfully, "when I first caught that signal in Montana, I never imagined it would lead to all this." The Elder's colors shifted to a gentle blue of wisdom. The prophecy spoke of surface dwellers who would either be our salvation or our doom. But it never mentioned what you truly brought us: hope, the courage to face the unknown. That's what humans do best, Amy smiled. We look at the impossible and say, why not? Back on Earth, at that same moment, a young child in another small observatory picked up a new signal from the stars. And in the depths of the Mirakai Ocean, the Shapers began teaching human scientists secrets of the universe that would change everything. The galaxy was about to learn that when you need the impossible done, when you need someone to face the darkness without flinching, when you need a miracle, you call the humans. Because sometimes the best solution to an advanced problem is a species just primitive enough to think the impossible is worth trying.